So effectively what I am doing today is another Mini Cooper buyer's guide for the first gen minis. So I happen to have a very nice example here of a Mini Cooper S with a John Cooper Works tuning kit. Now, how do I know that it has a John Cooper Works tuning kit? Well, like most Mini Cooper S's with JCW tuning kit, it has the badge. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means it has a tuning kit, but people say you could get the badges anywhere. Well, it has the exhaust, but once again, you can get those anywhere. So what makes it a JCW? Well, it has a badge on the front. Again, same story. It's when we get under the bonnet that all is revealed. And there it is. Yes, it's a Cooper S engine, but John Cooper Works airbox, stress bar, and tuning kit serial number. Now, some people could say, well, you can get that anywhere. You can get the badging, you can fake that. Sure, yeah, you could fake it, but there is another way to get that piece of information. And to get that information, you would run the VIN on this car. We ran the VIN on this car. It does in fact have a John Cooper Works tuning kit. So this is in fact a John Cooper Works. Now, when was it built? Well, if you check right here on the VIN tag, July 2005. So this is a 2005 Mini Cooper S John Cooper Works. And this is actually the first Cooper S John Cooper Works I've ever done with this type of video format, doing a buyer's guide. So this is kind of a what do you look for when you're buying a John Cooper Works first gen. I know, it's kind of crazy, right? I mean, you think the stuff would be the same as buying a regular first gen Mini, but there are catches, as you saw before. So aside from doing a VIN check on this car to verify that it is a John Cooper Works, the other ways to find it, aside from badging, stress bar, cover on the intercooler, and airbox, would naturally be the tuning kit number. Now this one here is S8493, which I believe stands for Cooper S. Now this is one great looking little first gen Mini Cooper S. It's dark silver. As you all know, I had a dark silver Mini once. Great looking color. It even has the highly sought after two-piece BBS R98 wheels. And I do mean highly sought after. You see these on a lot of first and second gen Minis just because it's a neat wheel. Now these aren't exactly in the best of shape, but they can be repaired. Remember, we are dealing with a 16-year-old, almost 17-year-old car. So you're gonna have a lot of little things that need to be fixed. Paint touch-up, trim pieces that need to be replaced. It's gonna rattle a little bit. And given the fact that it's a first-gen Mini Cooper, and it's from 2005, lots of 2005 cars rattle now. So this is no exception. Lots of plastic, it's going to rattle. That's kind of the ambiance, if you will, of a first-gen Mini Cooper. They all kind of rattle. They feel like an older car, but they still drive like a fun little crazy go-kart on steroids. And that's amazing. But what else do you need to look for when you're buying a first-gen Mini Cooper? I always like to point out these screws here. Now you see that they are Torx. If they are regular, like bolt style like this, it means that the bumper's been taken off the car. This bumper has not been removed. If it were, you would have different screws here, and quite possibly the plastic would be cracked. And you notice it's not cracked. This has never been off the front of this car. Now that could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. It means it might have not been put into service mode for anything major. But it could also be that the maintenance on this car was done so well that it didn't need it. So that's one thing to look for. Another thing is the strut towers. These are prone to failure time and again. And the reason why has to do with the way the suspension was redesigned in 2005. This is a 2005, 2006, and 2007, 2008 for the convertible engine mount. It was redesigned, fluid filled for the 2005 facelift on these cars. They softened the suspension because people complained it was too harsh. They softened this. The result was the suspension being so soft and the travel so short, these are prone to failure quite often. And if you look in here, it actually is torn around the mount. So these do need to be replaced. Now, for about $500 a side, last I checked, that's about how much it would cost to replace those upper strut mounts, or strut bushings, I should say. If you're mechanically inclined and can do it yourself, that's about $90 to $100 for a mount, and then doing the labor yourself to install it. Or you can be like what I did and get the Ireland Engineering fixed camber plates, which permanently fix the problem entirely, but it does mean you now have BMW Z3 or Z4 strut mounts. Not a bad thing. It also will add a little bit of negative camber to the front of the car. Again, not a bad thing. As this car belongs to a friend of mine, I'm going to be very careful with what I look at. But as you can see here, nice door sills. But if you pull up the rubber here, you can check for surface rust or actual corrosion in the door sills, and that's another thing to look for when you're buying a first gen Mini. Gas cap as well. I had this happen with my car. If you see the corrosion, if you see corrosion under the paint around here, that's something that's also a problem and is known to happen. And Mini's usual mode of repair is not to patch. In my case, they replaced the entire quarter panel. It also is known to rust around the tail lights, right down here. So again, they replaced the whole quarter panel. But check for these things. I mean, if they're there and you can live with it, go for it. If you can fix it yourself, go for it. If you want to have the body shop do it and you still want the car, go ahead. If you think it's too much work, then go look for one that's a little bit in better shape. And again, on this side, checking for rust. Now, another thing you want to check for when you are looking at one of these cars is you want to check to make sure there's no water in the trunk area, because it is known to happen, and it has happened frequently. But in this case, it looks pretty dry, and the owner's told me he hasn't had any water issues in here, so I wouldn't worry about it. Cool thing I just noticed here, that is a CD changer, a Mini original CD changer. That is unusual. Another thing I haven't mentioned yet that you might have noticed while I was walking around this car is it has the Harman Kardon sound system. Another nice option on a first gen Mini. This one also has the very rare Chrono Pack, which I had in mine and I loved it. And it has a rear fog light. And heated seats, no less. Now, unfortunately, a lot of us in the US have no clue how to use a rear fog light. It's meant so that the people behind you in thick fog can see your car. In my case, I've used it as a tailgate deterrent before. But it is pretty bright, as I shall now show you. And there you have it. And at night, from a good distance back, you can see that pretty good, especially in thick fog. Another rare feature, this one has an alarm. I haven't even seen that in my own, but that is a cool thing to have, especially when people try to steal the car. However, because it's a manual transmission, good luck to the thief who tries to steal one of these. Also, neat thing I remember hearing about first gen Mini Coopers is that the ignition system was designed so that if someone tried to steal the car, it would basically melt the ignition wires if they tried to use anything but the key that is supposed to go in the car. So, another safety feature. Now, of course, badges are known to fade over time. Those are easily replaced. You can get the headlights polished out. You can get trim rings replaced. These are all things that wear over time and are easily replaceable. Bushings are another thing to look at when you are working on one of these cars or buying one. Lower control arm bushings tend to fail pretty quickly, especially after about 60,000 miles. You want to get those replaced. I recommend, if you're going to do it yourself, get the pre-pressed ones, do the core deposit, and then return your old ones. You'll be much happier with that, and you won't have to deal with cutting the old ones out. Or you can take it to the dealership and have them do it for you. Another thing I should mention is that the best course of action when you are buying a used Mini Cooper like one of these is to definitely take it out for a test drive, because you'll get a feel for it. You'll know if there's any wheel bearing issues. You'll know if the power steering needs to be repaired, air conditioning, everything. You'll know all of that by driving the car, especially the shifter, if it needs a new clutch, all that stuff from driving the car. Get a real good feel for the vehicle. And we're gonna actually go do that. Now, when I was driving the car earlier, I heard a little bit of noise from the AC compressor, so that could be a concern, and it's at 60,000 miles, but probably not. Now, another thing about first gen Mini Coopers is they have very, very firm steering, firm clutch, and stiff suspension. So bear with me, because I haven't driven many of these in a while. There we go. And now we're comfy. So far, so good. It drives very, very nice. Now, because it's hotter than heck outside, I'm gonna roll up the windows. One drawback to first gen Minis is the windows don't go up automatically. You can get something called an Ian Cull switch, which will allow that to happen so that you can roll them up automatically with one flick. And I don't think the owner of this car knows that, so if he's watching the video now, he does. So we're gonna take it up a stretch of road that I happen to really enjoy, but I'm gonna roll the windows down and not say a word. I love that supercharger. That was incredible. That never gets old. I know all the new Minis are turbocharged, but a supercharged Mini never gets old. It's just always fun to drive. And if you're hearing the supercharger, it means it doesn't need to be replaced. So that's a good thing. What may need to be replaced is the suspension if you don't avoid potholes. And in Kansas City, there are tons of potholes. And they're practically unavoidable. But here's the thing. First gen Minis, yes, they rattle, yes, they creak, yes, they groan, yes, they need lots of maintenance sometimes, most of the time. They're just a fun car. It's become an enthusiast car. You buy these because you love them, not because you want something that's gonna get you from point A to point B. I mean, they can still do that, but these are fun cars. These are, you go out there and you enjoy yourself and you go for a nice country drive, and you don't care about the fact that there's a tear in the seat bolster, or there's a scratch on the back of the car, or the paint's not exactly perfect anymore. You just go out and drive it and have fun with it, because that's the way these cars are, and that's how they were meant to be. And they always will be that way. They will always be an enthusiast car. I will always have a soft spot for Mini Coopers like this, for first gen Mini Coopers, even though I have a newer Mini. I will always have a soft spot for these cars because they are just incredible little cars. Power steering works great in this car. Transmission is smooth. This car is in great shape. Aside from the strut mounts that need to be replaced, this is a great, great little car. And it has about 60,000 miles on it. This would put this car in a price range of around somewhere between $7,000 to $9,000. Fix all those little things and I could see it going for easily $9 grand. Not bad for a Cooper S with a JCW tuning kit. Before I end this video, here's another thing. When this car came out, you know how a lot of people love to just bash the third gen Minis, oh, they're too big, the nose is too long, da-da-da-da-da-da. When these cars came out, all the classic Mini owners, for the most part, didn't like them. I would say hate, but hate is such a strong word. They just didn't like them because they said they were, quote, too big and all that great stuff. But people have grown to love these cars. And then when the second gen Minis came out, they said they were too big, and people grew to love those cars, aside from the N14, but that's another story. And then when the third gen Mini came out, again, people said too big. And unfortunately, that has stuck with a lot of people who just don't like them, even though the third gens are incredible. So will the third gen owners be saying that the fourth gen Minis are too big, or not mini enough, or whatever, too much technology, not enough technology? You name it, people are going to complain about something. They're going to find a reason to complain about these cars regardless. But as a Mini enthusiast, I think this is a wonderful vehicle. This was also the last generation with a functional hood scoop, but that's another story as well. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like below. Don't forget to comment. Subscribe if you haven't already done so. I know I reminded you earlier, but consider subscribing. You might enjoy the content I have on my channel. I'm gonna get in this car, take it back to the owner, and go on with my day. So before I do that, I'm just gonna remind you all that, well, you know the drill. Life is too short to drive a boring car. So, yeah, drive a Mini. Oh, and one more thing. Don't forget to wave. It makes people's day. It makes my day. It just makes people happy. So yeah, don't forget to wave as well. I'll see you all in the next video.